So what should you do with soils that will not grow anything? We're talking about really old, exhausted and sandy soils which have nothing left to give. We've got this very dead, dry, crumbly soil with very little organic content, and you can see it's returning to the red chemical colour of it. And the reason there is soil is actually quite a complex thing. So there's this dirt component, which is the pure ground up rocks, which have been slowly breaking down over thousands and thousands of years to form the solid components of soil. You also have the living component. And as soil is over-farmed, or if it's open and readily exposed to sun and wind, it tends to erode away all of that living component, and you end up with dead, unhelpful soil. But there are things you can put in that which will start making it a little bit more lively. So you could just physically add an awful lot of mulch regularly and just keep digging that in to make your soil a little bit more organic by yourself. Or you can get plants to do that for you. So there are plants that will cope with very poor soils, very dead soils. So things like this little sand olive is a native tree which will grow in very poor soils where very few other trees will settle in. And what that's going to do is its roots are going to spread out in the soil, they're going to hold the soil together, and they're going to create an environment where all those little bacteria, all those insects, which keep the soil alive and active, are going to move back in. It's also going to create a little break in the wind so more organic matter will gather up around it. That includes its own leaves and other things that are just blowing past. Now, to keep the soil a little bit more shaded lower down, I like to plant a lot of succulents. So we have things like this native aloe, which is Aloe cameroni, which has beautiful red flowers in season. And you have things like this calico, which is a Madagascan plant, which is a fantastic, really easy to grow plant, which will grow in very poor soils with very little additional water. If you plant this in the middle or end of the rains, you very rarely need to do any extra care for it. And what that's going to do is going to shade the soil right underneath it and keep the worst of the sun and the wind off it. That's just going to make it a lot easier for all of those little organisms to move back in and make that soil lively again. And within that, you can then start to plant more useful and productive plants. Another great thing about planting succulents around your young trees is they are going to create a little bit of a living fire break. So all of these leaves are absolutely full of moisture. And so when fire comes up to that, it is going to cause that moisture to evaporate, and that steam is actually going to make it a lot harder for that fire to burn, and that's going to protect your tree right in the middle of the clump.